Hello, Mariette. We've heard from Nicola Williams, the outgoing Ombudsman, about some of the challenges and achievements over her tenure. So what do you see as the main aspects of the Ombudsman's role?
So the Ombudsman for me is about being able to challenge people to do better. So the move to the Ombudsman from the previous Commissioner role, to my view, is a very, very positive one, because it increases the power that you have to be able to look at things and make those recommendations to ask that complaints be reopened. But an Ombudsman is about providing a level of assurance to the sector that there is somebody there to hold the system to account and to challenge it to be better, to really sort of look into the issues that underpin it, as well as just the individual issues of complaint and the day-by-day work, to look into what is actually driving those complaints, what is actually underpinning the system, and where wider improvements need to be made.
So can you identify some of the areas which are lacking?
So the key issues for me coming in will be looking into, firstly, the number of people who express an unwillingness to complain. So the number of people in the continuous attitude survey who said they wouldn't feel comfortable raising a complaint. And that is, to my view, as much an issue for the service complaint system itself as it is for the Ombudsman. It needs to be an issue for the Service Complaint Ombudsman, because we need to be pursuing a system where people feel, even if they can't go directly to the chain of command, that they can come to the Ombudsman and have that assurance that, firstly, it's going to be looked at, it's going to be looked at correctly, and also that there's going to be no repercussions on them for having spoken up and having raised that issue. So that, for me, would be a primary issue I'd want to tackle, to try and address that number of people who don't feel comfortable with the system, because the system should be there to support them to be able to do the job that they want to do. So that's a primary thing I would want to tackle. The other main issue for me would be the overrepresentation of Black and minority ethnic personnel who are represented in the complaint system, as well as the overrepresentation of female serving personnel. And I know that's something that you are very interested in as well, Sarah, and I understand that your subcommittee starts taking evidence today on the experiences of serving female personnel. I'd be really interested to see the outcomes of that. But I would want to take that forward as a key bit of work. I mean, I know the Wigston Review had recommended doing a report into it, and I know Nicola has spoken very passionately about wanting to do that. It's work that I would absolutely support. I'd also be interested to see what the Ombudsman could do separate to that, in terms of engaging with perhaps people who've come to the Ombudsman service and gone through that process, to get perhaps a more thematic understanding of their experiences and what they feel is driving that overrepresentation, to really support that work that would be going on behind the scenes as well, in terms of the data at the other end.
You mentioned before about the having an effective complaint system. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of Graham House, Justice for Troops, who today or recently has launched a new independent defence authority to support personnel through the service complaints? Have you heard about that? It is hot off the press.
I haven't heard about that, no.
Okay, so basically, it's well identified that there are current problems within the service complaint system. And then obviously that has an impact on the Ombudsman. So certainly I think you've identified there are issues there that hopefully you're going to address. So what skills will you bring to this job, having identified some of the problem areas?
I think the main thing I will bring to the role is my experience from every stage of the investigation and Ombudsman process. I've worked almost every stage of that role in my current guise, and I've worn a number of hats, many of them simultaneously, many of them I'm wearing currently right now. So I have an ability to understand how casework moves at its basis form, how cases should be handled, and how they progress through the system. I'm also really proud of my ability as an ombudsman and a decision maker. My ability to write fair and reasonable outcomes based on clear analysis. I'm very proud of the fact that none of my decisions to date have been challenged by judicial review. So I think I will bring that level of decision making into the ombudsman. But I think my key skill is in assessing gaps. I tend to come up to speed fairly quickly with things, and I'm absolutely not naive enough to suggest that I could fix all of the problems that there might be at the moment, or that I could come in and make a material difference to the system or the backlog straight away. But where I do bring skills is in coming in and looking at a system and understanding, where do I think the gaps are? Where could I build on that? If I were a service user coming to this system, what do I think could be improved? And then applying that in a very operational way to sort of make recommendations into changes to process that would improve the system.
So to make any changes, you need good relationships, you need a good, effective team. So how do you plan to build that team around you as the lead, as the Ombudsman?
It's something that's going to be fairly more difficult than I would like, given the current COVID restrictions. And I'm also really conscious that the same thing that attracted me to the role, it being a 5-year term, means that people have been working with Nicola for a significant period of time, and that a change in leadership is something that they might well be feeling anxious about. And the onus is definitely going to be on me to engage with staff to make sure that they understand who I am as a leader and what I stand for. And you can't just walk into an organization and go, "Hi, I'm new, we're doing it my way from now on." People need to understand, if there is going to be change, what the need is for that change. And have you done your homework on all the things that have led to that need? And have you discussed and engaged with them? So whilst there will need to be improvements made, the primary focus for me will be on meeting the teams, understanding what's been tried to date, understanding how they feel about their casework, how they feel about their role, and what their desires are for improving the service for the future, so that I can really work with them and make sure that they feel engaged and brought on the journey in any changes that we put in place.
Yeah, ownership's essential, isn't it? I'd like to concentrate, Mariette, on the service complaints system and drill down a little bit more. What do you see as the main challenges with the service complaints system over the next 3 to 5 years?
One of the key things for me that I'd need to understand sort of as soon as possible in terms of coming up to speed is how far progressed the work of the Service Complaints and Justice Transformation team is, and understanding as well. I understand the Danuta Gray review has been submitted, but not yet made public. So I'd be really interested to see how far that work is progressing, because one of the main challenges addressing the system is that it's widely acknowledged that there is need for some level of reform. But how far along that reform is and how that will affect the work that you're trying to do at the same time. So balancing the need to maintain the day job whilst also looking at that transformation of the service complaints landscape as a whole. I think the challenges that I've identified that would be my priority speak to the service complaint system as a whole in terms of the overrepresentation of female and Black and minority ethnic service personnel, and the number of people who don't want to complain. I think a wider concern I would have in the service complaint system as a whole is the fact that we're striving for a system that's efficient and fair and effective, but currently only measuring it on timeliness, which isn't doing enough, to my view, to look at all of those aspects. It's just measuring whether or not it's fast. So one of the issues that was of particular note to me when I was sort of doing research for the role was looking at the percentage of cases where the Ombudsman was upholding challenges to inadmissibility decisions. So how many times are those decisions being made correctly at the first instance? How many times are they finding that there was maladministration or that there is something gone wrong in a substance complaint? And that to me is a key measure that needs to be brought into that service complaint system in terms of understanding whether or not the system is fair as well as being effective and efficient.
Yes, because what I'm hearing at the moment, it's very much the process that people have to go through as opposed to the outcome at the end. But you rightly mentioned Danuta Gray's review of the Wigston review, and I'm on the understanding that that's imminent. So I'm anticipating that will impact in some way on the complaint system. So how are you going to manage any transformation of the complaint system as well as continuing your day-to-day work?
It can be quite a tricky one. I think good communication and engagement is key. So making sure that you're having the right conversations with the right people so that anything coming on the horizon is not a surprise. So that you're working closely with the transformation team so you understand what it is that they're striving towards and how that might affect your work and the work of the Ombudsman as a whole, and how those two interact. And having clear plans in place as to, if changes are made, at what point do you apply them? That's particularly important when you've got a backlog of complaints, because if you're going to change a process, at what point does it change for the people who are going through, your system, and how it'll affect the complaints that are currently in train. And it's quite a particular knack to sort of maintain that sort of eye on the horizon and understanding the changes that are coming and seeking those sort of parallel improvement streams whilst still maintaining the, until it gets better, this is what we've got and this is what we're working with, and this is how we need to keep handling complaints as we go along.
So you've got a transformation team in place now that are looking at the current system. You're going to be new in post. How much authority are you going to have to change perhaps what they are already wanting to change if you didn't agree with what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think coming in, it will be, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I think there is a risk that work could be presented almost as a sort of done deal, saying this is what we want to change and please just accept it and move on with it. I'm not afraid of a robust challenge. And as I alluded to previously, if they can make me understand why those changes are being recommended and that they are the best thing for the service, then absolutely, that is something I can get on board with, but I would need to have that level of understanding. Because again, as I said previously, as the Ombudsman, the buck would stop with me. So I understand that there is scope to look at just the service complaint system, but also then to look at the infrastructure of the Service Complaint Ombudsman. But actually decisions around that infrastructure and making sure that that office and that organization works as well as it could do, that can and should and must stop with the Ombudsman. They are the person who is responsible for going to Parliament and saying, this is the work we're doing, you can now hold us to account. So I would be loath to put into place recommendations without fully understanding the need for them and the benefit for them, and that they've been fully thought through.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of new evidence and fresh evidence that's going to be coming out over the next few months. And I would hate to think that that couldn't be taken into account because decisions had already been made now, and then you don't have the authority or the influence further down the line to change anything. So I hope you stand firm on that one. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mariette. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah.